So I'm going to go ahead and start with a brief introduction since we're about 5 past here. I'm going to introduce our three speakers. Thanks everyone for showing up today. I'm going to ask that everyone who's not a speaker to turn off their camera if that's all right and mute as we go through. Any questions that you do have during the event, feel free to type into the chat. I will read them to the speaker just to keep things under control. At the end as well, if we have time, we'll do some additional Q&A as we go. All right, so in no particular order, just going to do a quick bio on our three speakers. We have Linda Kempen, Gina Riley, and Kate Dixon here today. So Linda Kempen, she helps job seekers realize that they're closer to that dream job than they think. She helps clients discover how LinkedIn profiles can actually be invisible to the recruiters and employers they want to attract, and how to overcome this blockage to their career growth. Linda delivers eye-opening look behind the curtain of how LinkedIn really works, sharing insights and to elevate each client's visibility so they can get their attention that they deserve. She serves clients globally as a LinkedIn coach and can definitely help you with some insights today. Our second speaker is Gina Riley, who we've know that she is coming out with a book in the next little while, but she brings expertise in HR, executive search, and interviewing skills as a career transitioning coach. She was named a 2024 LinkedIn Top Voice, and she's a Forbes Council contributor and certified UMAP coach at Talent's Group Executive Search and Consulting. She co-developed and taught interviewing skills and talent selection, and she led executive searches. And she's preparing to publish her book in Q3 2025 with Advantage Forbes Books, detailing her unique coaching model. And finally, Kate Dixon, our negotiation expert. She's author of the award-winning book Pay Up, Unlocking Insider Secrets of Salary Negotiation. She's principal and founder of Dixon Consulting, certified leadership development and total rewards consultancy, specializing in salary negotiation coaching, service pricing advice, compensation solutions, as well as workshops and team building for organizations of all sizes. She's a professional certified coach and has been a certified compensation professional for over 30 years. Her expertise has been cited in Wall Street Journal, U.S. News World Report, CNN, Forbes, and CNBC. So without further ado, we're going to get started with Linda to show us how to optimize and perfect our LinkedIn profiles as executives. We can all put some work in to make it a little bit better, right, Linda?
Absolutely, yes. So, are we sharing screens now, or?
Yeah, I've given you access if you want to share your PowerPoint.
Okay, just get this set up here. All right. Okay, can you see this?
Yeah, we're seeing your calendar right now.
Oh, you're not supposed to be seeing my calendar. What happened to this? I guess I picked the wrong screen. I thought I had it here. There we go. Let's try that. You don't need to see my calendar. It's too crazy. Is it still not going through?
Yeah, we see that the business of being visible.
Yeah, do you see a woman with her hands in the air?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
All right.
All right, so I've just been introduced. Now I'm going to introduce you to Susan. Now, what happened here was Susan came to me through a recruiter, and she just had a conversation with him. And his name is David. And she came to me on a Zoom call, and she's really in a huff. She says, Linda, you know what David just told me? He just told me that. All right, I'm going to show it to you here right now. He just said that I would have been a great candidate for the job he just filled, but I didn't show up in his search results. How is that possible? Mic drop. This is exactly what happens for a lot of us as we're going through this process. It's not unusual. And one of the things that I'm going to focus on right now in the next few minutes is the ways in which we can circumvent and maybe not even fall into this, but instead pivot around it and be able to move forward so that you can get on the radar screens of the people who you want to have fun for you. So let's just move on here and keep going. So basically, we're going to have to look at LinkedIn through a different lens than probably what you've been doing. This happens to be my logo. You can see it's a little bit of an extension out here, and that's really reaching out to a wider unit and being able to actually have a different idea about how this all works. So that's what we're going to flow on through right now. So right now in today's world, and this has been happening for a while now, we have basically two verticals, the challenged and the winners with respect to LinkedIn. People who are on LinkedIn, people who are members of LinkedIn, and most importantly, people who are trying to find a job because they've lost a job or they want to pivot. So if a profile is not optimized, and by that we mean, basically using all the bells and whistles that LinkedIn provides to us, and the platform is rich with that, even though they don't normally tell everybody what's available. So it's a good thing you're here because I'm going to share with you a few secrets that maybe you haven't heard before. So, but when a profile is not optimized, this is what happens. This is what happened to Susan. She was passed over. She didn't show up. And we'll talk about why and how that happens. Not tech savvy is also something that can be a judgment on the part of the recruiter hiring manager based on how your profile, what's on it, and most importantly, what may not be there. You could be a chief information officer, and if you had a lackluster LinkedIn profile, they might brand you as not tech savvy and keep looking for whomever or whatever they need next. So there's nothing automatic here about this. It really requires us to put some brain trust into it and a lot of focus so that we can actually show up well in search results. Other things that might be blocking people: low energy. You put up a profile sort of lackluster, not very important. Don't feel like you can really make a connection with these people. Think of it as, when that recruiter or hiring manager arrives at your corner, think of it as you're meeting them like having a glass of wine at a conference. This is a conversational meeting and in your voice. And if you come into this with low energy, you're not going to get much because people don't want that. They want to engage. Last but not least, ageism creep. We hear about that a lot. And a lot of people worry, well, I've got gray hair. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get anything. I will tell you that if you fix this energy piece and all these other pieces, you've got a really, really, really good chance at getting what you want, because you're going to come through as someone who can actually solve problems for people. Alternatively, now on the other side of the coin, we have, on the winner side, if you will, tremendous control through LinkedIn with in terms of visibility, findability. This is a big piece of what Susan was missing that David was trying to share with her. And ultimately, it'll turn into competitive positioning. So it'll separate you from the competition, showcase your expertise, but never over the top, never bragging, never, no extremes, but just a way in which you separate yourself from the competition. And your sphere of influence is, of course, also very important, because if you don't have a very big network on LinkedIn, you're basically singing to the choir, and you're not going to get much in terms of having those people help you to reach out and find the right jobs and get introduced to the right people. So I like this. This is my little trio here. I like to say that we have three audiences that we have to keep happy at the same time if we want this to work for us, particularly in job search. So we're going to look at them one at a time here. I've got little affectionate names for them. I will call this door number one, help LinkedIn help you. But ultimately, this is the non-human side. This is where and how you go in and you create a keyword strategy for yourself that's going to show up on your profile, in your headline, and in multiple other places where there's a lot of power in it with respect to the algorithm. And then but you're also getting categorized in the back end in the database. And those are things we don't see. We just have no idea that that's going on. But the way LinkedIn works, one of the ways in which LinkedIn works, is that the frequency with which those keywords or keyword phrases your priority ones particularly, they repeat within your profile, helps you show up higher in search results. Now, we can't go crazy. We can't go into keyword stuffing and just go overboard, but we certainly can use this in a very strong way, because this is a big driver in terms of how you get seen. Again, going back to Susan and where she fell down perhaps in this way. So having this highly targeted keyword strategy is important. Also, don't try and be all things to all people, because if you do, then you're going to just have keywords all over the place talking about all these different things you can do, and none of it's going to be niche enough for you to show up high enough to get on the radar screen of those recruiters. And people really want specialists and experts more and more. So trying to be all things to all people, I mean, I'll tell you, I did it myself way back in the day, and it doesn't work. So drop that one if you have that in mind. So now going forward, now LinkedIn alone is so unique, because we have those keyword strategies that we can help build, as I showed you on the prior page, but we can also get into the narrative, because the keywords alone are not going to seal the deal. People want to know, and this goes back to the experience section, the about section, what it's like to work with you, what kinds of problems have you solved, all those kinds of things. And if they find you, or if somebody recommended you and then they get to your profile, they really want to learn more about you. And which is because they're vetting all the time. They're doing it all in advance. And most of the time we don't even know it's happening. But at the end, so we have to show up again, what I call right, well, and strong for the things you want to be found for. And you have to do it at the front end, not at the back end, because you'll never know what the back end, if they ever came to see you, or what they thought, and if they left or in a hurry and said, well, I can't do anything with this person, sorry. So having this minimalist approach, which a lot of people do, this is where I worked, this is how long I was there, and this is what my title was, done. There's no meat on the bone for them to actually figure out exactly what you do and how you might help them. And that's what they're here for. They have a pain point, and they basically want to know, uh, can you help? And that's a big driver. That's literally what LinkedIn was founded for, all the way back when, 04, 05, when, or maybe it was in 03. I'm losing my dates here. But in any case, so think about it in terms of what kinds of problems are you crackerjack at solving? And then showcase that. You don't have to go over the top and brag or anything like that, but you can make it clear how you've done that, and and the ways in which you had some positive outcomes. So not just I did it, but how I did it, and so on and so forth. We're not writing a novel here either, but you can do this in a few sentences. That's really going to make a difference. Trust factors are also really important. If you don't have recommendations on your profile, you might think about trying to go out and ask people to do that for you on your behalf. People can always say things about us we cannot say about ourselves without sounding arrogant. So go for it. It's really powerful. The other thing I want you to make sure you avoid is resume speak. And by that, I mean, if you are literally copy pasting your resume copy into your LinkedIn profile, you're going to laugh, but I'm going to tell you straight away, it sounds like your obituary. It sounds like you're gone, because you're looking at somebody's face, but that face is not speaking to you. Somebody else is speaking to you because somebody else wrote it. So it's definitely, and on top of that, there's other issues with respect to the resume sectioning, and how it's usually all bullets, dense, and that's a turnoff. Most recruiters will not read through all that. So you've got to be aware, very much aware of exactly how these recruiters think and what they do and why they do it. And most importantly, as we talk about this problems, crackerjack at solving, I also focus on color commentary. And by that, I mean ways in which you shine. And a lot of times that's a one person, a one sentence, perhaps. I had one client here in the area in commercial real estate. His dad was in the area. Originally, he spun off on his own. And then I was working together with him, and he said, he was on his own at that point, but there was another larger company that was really interested in him. And he's a very, very funny guy, and not your typical commercial realtor. But what he ended up saying to me was, with this little ha ha ha, was, those guys chased me for 7 years. I said, what? This is going in your profile. what does that one sentence tell you? And those kinds of nuggets show up all the time. But we have to do a deep dive and really start to think about it. And but they come up, and those are the things that make you memorable and separate you from everybody else. Last but not least is really you showing up for your full value. A lot of times we stop short. And sometimes as we don't know what we want to say or how much is too much. That's fair. But at the end of the day, um, when we do this right, this LinkedIn's working for you 24/7. So, but you have to find really fine tune your positioning so you're attracting the right opportunities. A lot of times you might be getting recruiters reaching out to you for the wrong job, something you did years ago, and you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. How come they're not looking at something else? That's going to be largely driven by what's on your profile, and most importantly, what's not on your profile. That's making that earlier stuff more important and more elevated than what you really want to do at the moment. So we want to get you established as an industry authority and basically have this profile that not only helping you get this new job, but to actually advance you at any point in your career where you're trying to move ahead, some kind of career goal. So if you just wrote a book, like Kate and Gina are doing right now, and you want to get on the speaking circuit, guess what? People are going to come over here and check you out. If you decide you're tired of working for an employer and you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to get investors, guess what? People are going to be looking, definitely investors are going to be checking you out. Strategic partnerships, on and on. The list goes on and on. So don't let this stop you. Look at it as a way in which you can really, truly control a lot of what's going on. And then ultimately, what ends up happening is we get synergy. And that synergy is tremendously powerful. And that's really sort of this invisible thing that really pushes you over the top in a good way and makes you get on the radar screen again of those people that are that need you. So I like to say, though, just be careful. We're not talking about LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile. We're not talking about LinkedIn is blocking you. We're talking about what you may or may not be doing with your own profile that may be holding you back. Because LinkedIn's out there for us. They've given us plenty of bells and whistles and lots of good stuff. And ultimately, you have the key. So I would say to you, let's go use it.
Thanks, Linda. Uh,
Thanks.
Maybe a little short question for you, because for people that are unfamiliar with SEO and keyword optimization and so on, can you give us an idea of, what would be some keywords for, I don't know, an HR position or a sales position or something? How would you find what keywords you need to put in your profile and so on? Like, what's an exercise people could do today, for example, to work on that themselves if they were, looking to do something like that?
Well, I actually give them that sort of an exercise when I first work with people, and so I give them basically, if it was going to be sales, sure, but what kind of sales?
Yeah.
And really be very specific about it. And a lot of times if you put sales in your headline at the top of the page, people are going to, this person's going to come after me and start trying to sell me something. So you might want to look at it in terms of business development or company expansion or some other phrase that might be a less I don't know, make people more comfortable and from that perspective. But look at it in terms of the keywords. It's normally there should be keyword phrases because that really tells people a little bit more about what you need and what you can do and how you can sell. But go in there and mention that if you're an expert in something, say I'm an operations expert, and you could talk about supply chain or something. But you can also get a little granular in terms of the different types of things that you do in that space, because when 90% of the time, the recruiters are using an upgraded version of LinkedIn. I didn't even get into that right now, but they are sending out a Boolean search when they're trying to fill a job. And what ends up happening is if they're going to load that up with just all kinds of detail. Why? Because we've got over 1 billion people on LinkedIn now. How easy is it going to be for them to find the right person? So as much as you can match up, even though you don't know what it is, but as much as you can anticipate what they may be looking for, even in a granular way, and get those keywords in your profile, the better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. It's individual and you want to be niched down, as you said before, right? Being as niche as possible because
Right, right. And then the other thing, if you're trying to pivot, you may want to be doing something aspirational. And so something you're not doing now, or something you're only doing a little bit of and you want to do more of. So you can also start to weave those in there too. Even if you're not doing it right this minute, but that's the direction you want to go in. Getting that into your profile at least lets people know that that's on your radar screen. And that might be helpful, because there's so many things that people that recruiters and hiring managers are looking for right now. And a good piece of that is, just things obviously AI and how people do they have any skills in even just IT coding? Different things that they could just see that you could come in, they could bring you in and they could move you forward, even if that's not your main job. Just kind of see what other things you bring to the table. So yeah,
no experience is ever a waste, that's for sure.
absolutely. And the other thing on LinkedIn, if I can say one more thing, is more is more here, but more with a strategy, more with reason. So when you have your keywords in there, make sure that they're showing up in multiple places, but specific to that particular job. But when that happens, that's going to again help you elevate in terms of showing up on the radar screen. It's all of that's moving up the visibility. So yeah,
Sounds good.
great. Any more questions? Or are we passing the baton?
I think we're going to go ahead and pass the baton now to Gina, which
Okay.
has a pretty good message that kind of ties into what you were also talking about. Just going to give Gina permission here so she can share her screen as well.
Awesome.
And the floor is yours, Gina.
Thank you. Good morning and afternoon to everyone. I'm Gina Riley, and I'm going to actually talk a little bit quickly because I want to make sure there's plenty of time for Kate because I think we're all here for the scary salary negotiations. So what I'm going to talk about is your unique value proposition. Being qualified for a job simply is not enough to land the job. It may be enough to get into an interview process, but it's not the thing that lands you the job. And so, what is that thing? Your unique value proposition plays a huge role in that. I'm not going to go through this because John introduced me, but the reason why I bring expertise to this is my recruiting background. I've led executive searches. I've led CEO searches. I've been in the boardroom watching the finalists do their finalist presentation, and I see what it takes to win the job, and I have seen how people have lost the job. And so that's the experience I'm bringing to you today. So we'll briefly talk about candidate pitfalls. What is a unique value proposition? The importance of the soft skills or the power skills that you bring into in the way that you describe yourself and the way that you behave. And ultimately, how do you answer the tell me about yourself narrative? And I'll end with some success strategies. So this is where we have a little bit of audience participation. So if you have your fingers near your keyboard, you can put this in the chat. That would be amazing. So what are some candidate pitfalls? You're a bunch of leaders here on the call today, and you have interviewed likely plenty of people in your lifetime. So what are the things that you see people do that craters them getting the job or going through the process? So here's some of the short list that I've created. So not standing out with a lack and having a lack of clear differentiators. Again, qualified isn't enough. You have to have differentiators to land the actual job offer. Lacking competence, or as we say, executive presence. Some people blow it by lacking humility or self-awareness. And the number one deal killer, and I talk about this in the book that I'm writing, is rambling, not preparing succinct stories that land with the people that need to hear it. Being poorly prepared or having not done research and not having good questions. And then, John, if anyone is throwing something in the chat, I'm going to take a breath. Did anyone throw anything in there about candidate pitfalls?
So good. So good so far. No.
Okay, I will keep going. So, why do you care about your unique value proposition. And why do you need to be explaining that to the people hearing you? Well, companies know that it's very expensive to get it wrong. If they make a job offer to the wrong leader or the wrong executive, it can hurt the culture, it can hurt opportunities, it can hurt morale. There's so many, I mean, we could create a list of like 10 things very quickly. So what you need to do is have a unique value proposition so that you can put yourself forward as the most competent person that can win that job offer. So what is a UVP, or unique value proposition? So if anyone, again, listening, has your fingers on the keyboard, throw it in the chat, but I'm going to give you the answer quickly here. So how would you define your unique value proposition? The way that I define it is a combination of your unique strengths, your natural talents, think Strengths Finder, your knowledge, skills, and abilities, or your KSAs, and your achievements. So the things the big wins that you've had in your career, the results that you've had in your career, and the things that you're most known for. So it's the how you do what you do, the what you know how to do, and then those big career wins. Pulling this together is what creates that value proposition. So why do you need it? You must distinguish yourself from other candidates that have similar job qualifications that match the job. So how many times I can imagine all of you raising your hand. How many times have you heard someone say, well, I applied to all these jobs. I applied to 100 jobs in the past couple of months, whatever that is, and I was qualified for all of them. Qualified isn't enough. You have to show that you've got something that distinguishes you from potentially hundreds of other applicants to get the first call in the first place. So you need to describe your unique benefits, your value. This is the thing that's going to set you apart from your competition. And it highlights why your offering is different from other people and why you might be the best choice, or at least the person that should get talked to about the opportunity. And it's the thing that's going to make you memorable. This is the question that I want you to be thinking about answering. What can you do unquestionably better than your competition? You must assume that the people who are finalists in an executive level recruitment are all qualified. What is that combination or secret sauce that you have that could tip the scale in your direction to get the job offer? So that then you can use Kate Dixon's amazing salary negotiation tactics and be the one that wins the job and also gets the job offer that they really want. So to win the job in a competitive market, you must be confident and clear on your UVP. And what I like to talk about, I wrote an article featuring a woman named Jennifer Davis. I'm happy to put that in the chat when I drop off this presentation. But what Jennifer talks about in an article I wrote called How Your Next Executive Role Finds You. I did a series of 7 interviewing these executives. And she says, if a company is looking for someone who has, let's say, the saw, as you see in this photo, but you show up and you're like, I can do it all. Put me in, coach. I've got a jackknife. I've got the wine bottle opener. I've got the corkscrew. I've got the, all of these different implements, the comb that's in the jackknife. You're going to have a miss, because the people that are listening to your messaging need the sharp tool. So it's fine if you are a Swiss Army knife. You may have a Swiss Army knife full of experiences, but if you don't hone and pay attention to what that specific target needs right now, you could have a miss. So you need to be elevating yourself beyond the hard skills. Quickly, if you can answer this question, I'm going to answer it for you here, is how heavily weighted do you feel as though the soft skills or your power skills play into the decision-making process? So your hard skills are your minimum qualifications. It's your table stakes. It's the thing that gets you into the first conversation. These are your technical and functional skills, the things that we can see if you have the industry background, the functional area of expertise. So the percentage of soft skills that may tip it in your direction to get the offer, Once you start talking to people, these are your behaviors. These are your leadership skills. According to the research with executive presence, it is 26% of the equation here. So again, you need to know your unique value proposition, and you need to be able to communicate that with confidence, decisiveness, humility, authenticity, all the elements of executive presence. So with your UVP, your aim is to eliminate doubt about your candidacy. Again, going back to companies don't want to get it wrong. You must give assurance that you're the right choice and they're not going to have a miss, that you're going to be a culture enhancer, that you're going to help seize opportunities. You're going to help cultivate a culture that is worth working in. So you need to have a unique story, and how well you tell it determines how quickly you're going to land your next job opportunity. And your ability to tie your UVP to this question sets the tone for the conversation. The first thing that you will read if you buy my book next year, the very first line in the introduction, not even chapter 1, is, "So, tell me about yourself." And my first 2 paragraphs are about interviewing a CEO candidate who I gave express instructions. Tell me about yourself in just 5 minutes or less, because I have 8 skill-based questions I need to get to in our hour together. And that man spoke for 20 minutes. And having that experience was such a gift for me in my program development, because much of what I do, the first whole entire part of my career coaching program, is helping people define their UVP so they can explain their career through line and answer the question, tell me about yourself. So you need to answer what your unique strengths, how you apply them, the reoccurring themes in your career, what are you most known for, and then how specific can you get? The elements of a UVP, as I mentioned, are your unique strengths, and I'm not talking about your personality. I'm not talking about if you're an introvert or extrovert, etc. I'm talking about the natural talents that come from the Strengths Finder. How can you weave into your storytelling things that help elevate and explain how you show up in the world? What are your knowledge, skills, and abilities? And then what are your career wins and results? The 3 elements of the UVP. So moving forward, some strategies for success. You can create a UVP summary. You can use tools like the UMAP Career Profile Assessment. You can document your career journey and identify the themes and the patterns of your career, and then also define your career results. And the hint is, if you've worked with a professional resume writer or you've done a really great job with your resume, your career results right there on that couple of pieces of paper, and then being able to answer the tell me about yourself narrative. Another strategy to try to figure out your UVP is conduct informationals and use different frameworks to go out, gather information about what you need to be explaining when you're in these interviews. And the reason why you want to do that is you want to uncover what challenges these companies are trying to solve. You want to find out the desired qualifications, and you want to assess and address any perceived skill gaps that you have. You may have developed an amazing UVP. I'm working with a client right now, has an absolutely locked down UVP, but she is missing a couple of key elements that are blocking her from getting past the first interview for a CEO job in healthcare. And so those are the things that we're trying to address right now. So the ABCs of your career: always be networking, always be connecting, gather information from people, connect with others, and make networking a habit. And my last strategy to say here today is build a support team. Get a job search group, a buddy system, leverage resources that you have. You can practice. You can record your interview prep and your presentations. You can hire a coach. There's a whole bunch of us on the screen here today. And then what is the unique value proposition? Ultimately answering what you can do unquestionably better than your competition. What makes you unique, different, and special? So that is it on my qualified is not enough. John, are there any questions in the chat?
I will just give everyone a moment here to type some in. That's it's really helpful, because I think if you think about your UVP and you're working on your LinkedIn with with what Linda brought up, it kind of ties in all together, right? Like you're trying to position yourself, create a message that's clear and concise. And you're right, differentiating yourself is important. Like we talk to hundreds of candidates in the same position sometimes. For example, B2B tech marketer would be a perfect example. And I tell them, well, what's your niche, or what separates you from the other 500 that I've talked to in the last month? Why would what's going to get you hired as opposed to them, right? So being able to speak to that quickly and concisely is key. And I think people don't really think about that until it's time to interview. But if you've been an executive and you haven't interviewed for so long, then you're like, oh, I forgot how to do this. Or I haven't done this in
Exactly.
years, right?
Well, and the thing is, and for those of you who may be listening today thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm not really sure if I got this dialed in." We didn't get taught this in school. I graduated in the very early 90s, and I'm working with people similar in age to me, that Gen X, early boomer, and most of us struggle with like seeing, reading the label of our own jar. And so doing this deep work is super important to having the confidence to explaining how you show up and how you're going to help that target company. So, John, thank you for having me on. I will drop that article I referred to with Jennifer Davis in the chat so people can read it. I wrote 7 of those. And then yeah, I can share also my free career transition guide. And I want to make sure Kate has time, so I want to be quiet.
One last question though from Marina here. She says, over the course of my career, I've been second choice a lot. What have you seen in your experience that candidate who just missed the mark did not have? I know it's individual, but maybe a theme stands out.
I think you nailed it. There is possibly something that you can address that helps tip the scales in your favor, and it's really hard to know what that is without knowing you and the situation. I'm working, like I said, I'm working with a woman right now, and part of it is actually her executive presence and up leveling the conversation about how she drives strategy and talks to board of directors, because she's awesome with operational excellence and task oriented, tops down execution. It could be a number of things. It could be one skill gap that you haven't identified or no one's told you, and you need to call out that elephant in the room. There's a whole list of things I could go through.
Sounds good. Well, we thank you, Gina. I know you have to head off soon, so we'll pass
Thank
the
you.
torch here to Kate for some scary salary negotiations, which we're all excited about.
So excited to share some ideas here with you. And I'm really only going to share one main slide with you. And this is about how to have a conversation about salary negotiation. So I'm going to quickly share my screen and we'll get this up here. So there's a 4-part conversation recipe, and I teach this to all of my salary negotiation coaching clients. It's also in my book, Pay Up, which you'll see behind me, which I'm going to give you a discount on in just a minute. But there's 4 parts, and this is a deliberately designed funnel to get you more of what you want. So let's start out at the beginning. Express delight. This is something that people skip. In fact, they oftentimes skip to the number 3, making a request, without going through the other stuff. But it's important to start at the beginning. Express delight. One thing that people don't often think about is the person that you're negotiating with, who's almost always an HR person. Sometimes it's a frontline leader that you're working directly for, but most of the time somebody in HR, they're a little nervous having this conversation with you too, but for a different reason. They know that they've extended an offer to you, and they don't know if you're going to say yes or not. So expressing delight can really cut down the anxiety that the person that you're negotiating with has about, am I going to be able to convert this candidate into an employee? So just it's something very short. you know, thanks so much for extending the offer. I'm so delighted that XYZ company thinks that this is as good of a match as I do, right? Boom, you're done. But you're just kind of introducing the fact that, yes, you want this to work out. Because bottom line, a salary negotiation is solving a business problem collaboratively. And so I want you to keep that in mind. This is a business problem. This is not a personal problem. It's not personal. So express delight, that's your first step. That's super easy, feels good. Your next thing is to ask questions. And these are questions that the person you're negotiating with can typically answer either off the top of their head or with a little bit of research that they can probably do while they're on the phone with you. And again, the reason that you have this is, again, you want to kind of ease into the more challenging parts of the negotiation, but these are also things that you need to know in order to do your negotiation well. So I recommend at least one, probably not more than three questions. And one of the most classic ones that my clients use is about 401k or retirement match, because oftentimes what'll happen is in all the materials that they get, which PS and by the way, you need to read cover to cover, absolutely everything before you get in on this conversation. But they'll say, oh, XYZ Corp has a great retirement program and our 401k match is very competitive, right? So they'll say stuff like that, but it's not normally in the offer materials what that match is. So a great question to ask is, hey, I see in the offer materials that you provided that there's a 401k match, but I'm really not clear from the information that I have what that is. Could you share that with me? Boom, that's something that, again, the person you're negotiating with should be able to answer off the top of their head. It's something that you want to know because if you're coming from a place that has a very rich match or you're coming from a place that has a very poor match, that's going to factor into the requests that you're going to make. So ask questions like that. Don't ask where you're going to park your car or whatever. That's not material to whether or not you're going to accept the offer. You could, if the offer has a bonus, you could ask them in the question part about what is the timing for the bonus and your eligibility timing for the bonus. So some places you have to be in your seat at the beginning of the performance period. Sometimes they'll do some annualization, stuff like that, but that's a legit question to ask in the questions. So you're not making any requests at this point. You're just really clarifying the offer. So you've expressed your delight, you've asked your questions. Now it's time to get into the meat of the conversation, or the tempeh if you don't eat meat. This is really the main dish, right? And this is what people get really anxious about, and I understand that. So I'm going to give you a really quick little script that you can use to make your request. Most people, when they're making requests, are requesting a change to the base pay, a change to the bonus opportunity, or sometimes they're asking for a change in the equity. And typically that's the order that we ask you to make your requests because that's kind of the traditional way that people think about it. When we're talking about executive negotiations, sometimes there's multiple rounds, and the first round is really about base pay and bonus. The second one is, about equity. Sometimes the first one's about equity too, but the second one could be about relocation, if that's something that you're working on, and then third one, and with that relocation, there's usually some discussion about a sign-on bonus. And then the third one is typically about uh, like an agreement, what kinds of things are in the employment agreement. So sometimes it's just one conversation, sometimes it's multiple, but you're always going to be in a position where you're going to be making requests if you're going to be doing salary negotiation. And the most common thing that people negotiate is base pay. So that's the example I'm going to use here because we have limited time. But so what a client I might advise them to do would be to say, my research shows that jobs like these are paid between X and Y in the marketplace. And based on my, going back to Gina's unique value proposition, based on my special thing about myself, my UVP, I'm targeting the higher end of that range. How close can we get? And I'm going to break this down for you about why this is constructed the way that it is. So the first piece is my research shows that jobs like these are paid between X and Y in the marketplace, right? So you want them to know that you've done some research. And PS, and by the way, there's tons of great information that you can get on the internet now that didn't exist even 5 years ago. And now, too, that companies are required in many states to publish the salary range for the jobs that they are posting for. There's just a ton of information out there that you can get, and you should get close. You should understand kind of what the going rate for the job is that you're seeking. And my recommendation is that you use a range that's about 10% wide in terms of, when you're saying from X to Y in the marketplace. You can also like sometimes my clients say in the mid 200s, right? That's good enough, right? But you could say, my research shows that jobs like these are paid between the mid 50s and the mid 60s. Or my research shows that jobs like these are paid between 75 and $82,000 a year. And so that's that first piece. And then based on my unique value proposition, and you don't have to go into the whole thing, but think about that sharp tool that Gina was talking about that they are really interested in, right? So you're the compelling candidate for this job because you're bringing, this, oh, you have specialized experience in Latin America. Ooh, they really are super excited about that. So based on my specialized experience in Latin America, I'm targeting the higher end of that range, right? And you want to give them a range because you want them to have many choices of how to be successful in this conversation with you. And giving them a range allows them a little bit more comfort. It's not like you're saying, I want a pony for Christmas, and if I don't have a pony, I don't want anything. You're giving them a range to be successful in. And that unique value proposition is a part of this conversation. So based on my UVP, I'm targeting the higher end of that range. And the last piece of this is how close can we get? Very important to phrase it in this way because, again, this is a business conversation. This is a solution that you're working on together. How close can we get? You're not saying, can I have this or do I not get this? You're asking them a question that's not a yes or no question because you want them to have the brain processing time to do the right thing for you. Our brains are hardwired with yes or no questions to make those quick decisions. Asking them, how close can we get? Well, I don't know. How close can we get? Let me think about that for a minute. You want that. And you ask, how close can we get? And then you're quiet. Don't say anything. Allow them the brain processing time to get through and answer that question the way that is meaningful. Because silence is very challenging in a negotiation, but it can be your most powerful ally. So, how close can we get? And then you be quiet. And what will typically happen in this case, most people that you negotiate with are not going to be able to give you an answer on the phone, and that is great. So don't expect for them to say, okay, sure, because that's not realistic. What normally happens in these cases is they're processing, how close can we get? I'm really not sure what the answer to that is, candidate, but I'm going to need to talk with hiring manager about that and get back with you. Is that okay? And then, of course, you're so magnanimous. Of course, you're going to say, yes, that would be great, right? So let them come to the conclusion that they're not going to be able to answer you right there. And then they'll tell you what the deal is. And then you're ready to move to ending on an up note. And there are two components to this. So one of the things that we know is that research shows that people remember the end of conversations more than they remember the beginning and the middle. So sorry, Linda. Sorry, Gina. They're going to remember the end. So uh, we want to make sure that this is a happy ending. And that doesn't mean that you're going to walk away and know exactly what's going on, but do appreciate the person that you're talking with. So one of the things that I coach folks to do is say something like, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you advocating on my behalf. Um, because they just told you that they have to go back to the hiring manager, right? And thanking them for what they're about ready to do, which is going to take some effort on their own part, is a smart thing to do. Because guess what? Recruiters do not get appreciated a lot. So, like acknowledging that they're making an effort for you is really important. So, just something quick, easy, light. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your help in this. Okay. And then the second piece of this is figuring out when you're going to talk to them next. This is super important. People think a lot of times that making requests is the hardest part about salary negotiation. And I will tell you with 100% confidence, it's actually waiting to hear back. That is the most anxiety producing thing. And if you don't know when that's going to be, it can be, people fill their minds with all kinds of craziness. Oh, they're not getting back to me because they're going through the entire, interview process with someone else. They're extending the offer to someone. That's not what's happening. They're trying to coordinate between this person and that person and so on. Somebody's on vacation and all of that kind of stuff. So the best thing you can do is get a firm time with the person that you're negotiating with when you're going to talk to them next. And you can take the initiative on this. So, they've told you that they're going to need to talk to the hiring manager before they get back to you. Um, you can say something like, oh, hey, when would be a good time for us to connect again on this? I know you have some time to talk with the hiring manager. When should we talk, right? And then they'll say, well, I don't know. It's going to take a few days. It's Monday right now, and I don't really know. And then you could say something like, well, if if we were to connect on Thursday, would that work for you? Oh, sure, I think I can do it, blah, 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 right? Oh, great. Thursday, I actually have 9:30 open on my calendar. Would that be a good time for us to meet? Sure, that sounds great. I'll be happy to send an invitation if you'd like, because remember, the person you're negotiating with, oftentimes a recruiter is going to have a zillion people that they're coordinating across, up to like 30 requisitions. So if you offer to take something off their desk, they're usually pretty happy about it. So it's okay to have that, take that negotiation or that positioning in the negotiation. So that's all there is to it, to four-part conversation recipe. Express delight, ask questions, make requests, and end on an up note. And this works. We use this in all of my salary negotiation coaching clients. They work this and it works for them. So I'm going to offer to spend a couple of minutes taking questions, but first I wanted to offer you two. This is a picture of my book, Pay Up. If you go to my website and use Fall 24, you can get a 20% discount on the ebook. So I'd be delighted if you did that. And, again, I'll stick on for a few minutes here and answer whatever questions that you have. So.
Maybe a quick one, Kate, would be just, for people that are hesitant to negotiate because they think they're going to lose the opportunity, what would you say to them? I know you said 80% will get something if they ask, but how do you get over that, anxiety about losing the offer? That's
I think
definitely real.
I think it's a common thing that people are anxious about. And, again, I've been doing this work for a really long time. I was inside companies for a lot of times. I've been, outside doing coaching for a long time. And on the opposite end, when I was inside companies and working with offers, um, the only time I ever saw an offer withdrawn was when somebody lied on their application. So it didn't have anything to do with their negotiation. And my experience with my clients is when they approach it in a very collaborative way, use this four-part conversation because they're solving a business problem. None of my clients have ever had an offer withdrawn. I think, it's really treating the person that you're negotiating with respect, enter it as a collaboration. I have heard of no offers getting withdrawn, but it's more likely to be a factor of, the offer was extended and then the company decided to do a layoff, that's been something that people who've been in my talks have told me about. But, again, not really tied to negotiation, especially if you're coming in with the right attitude. So,
Yeah, it seems to be a confidence and attitude piece as much as it is saying the right things and following your framework there.
yep,
That's
100%.
Any other questions, everybody? Want to type them into the chat?
Yeah, or just come off of mute and show me your face, and yeah, be happy to answer any kinds of questions because, again, seen a ton of stuff. Oh, for a person negotiating an hourly rate as a contractor who do not get vacation or 401k, what kinds of strategies can enhance the likelihood of getting more is what I missed. So I have another book called Name Your Price, which is about setting and raising your prices as a coach or consultant or contractor. And you can use that fall 24 discount to get a discount on this one as well. But I think it can be challenging. But typically with freelancers, what I recommend them doing is just kind of letting folks know that their rates are changing because it's a little different kind of a thing than, you know, um, with negotiating a salary. It's like, okay, well, my 2024 rate is $50 an hour, and moving into 2025, my rate is increasing to $55. Wanted to, let you know, with a few months left in the year, and if you renew your contract before the end of the year, I can extend the pricing that you're currently getting, that $50 an hour. I can extend that through the first quarter of next year. So, stuff like that you could do. So I hope that helps, Cara.
And I think it all stems to showing your value, right? If you build
Mhm.
value, then it's a little bit easier to ask for what you think you're worth.
Yes.
Already taking the time to do that. So that's great.
Yeah, 100%.
Um,
Um, and another question here, what resources should you use to gauge rate setting? So, depending on what type of work that you do, there's some really good online sources for this. There's like this really cool crowdsourced database around like agency stuff. So for advertising, and that includes things like graphic design and copywriting and things like that. There are, your professional organizations sometimes can have good things, but, ask Chat GPT too, because, again, Chat or Claude, which is what I use, can collect data from a lot of sources that you might not even think about looking at. So, yeah.
and there's also some communities you can join that have that kind of data.
Mhm.
We're going to be
Mhm.
sending out an email after post event to introduce all our speakers, but also give some additional resources in terms of like, checking out payscale.com, salary.com, some other ones to give you the research you need because you don't have the research, how do you know what to ask for, right?
Yep.
Just
And like a little tip on that one too, in terms of, and this works for coaches and contractors as well as for folks who are looking for jobs within a company. Folks are sometimes can be hesitant to say, well, Linda, what do you make? And that can be a little bit challenging. So what I recommend people do is do your research and then validate it. So I might do the research and then come to Linda, who does the same kind of work that I do, and say, hey, Linda, my research is showing that jobs like these are paid between X and Y in the marketplace. How does that land with you? Is that consistent with what you know? And then Linda is not like put completely on the spot about, having to reveal her own salary, but then, oh, well, Kate, that seems really, really high compared to what I've seen, or wow, that sounds about right, or gee, maybe I need a raise, or so it can have a conversation that you can get into without feeling like you're putting the other person on the spot.
makes total sense. I mean, it's also like depending on the employer, right? I've seen some employers that are 10th percentile employers that are just paying below market. So even if you want to negotiate with them, they don't have the money. So I think it's important to like vet your opportunities a little bit before you apply, because you can't assume that they have the wiggle room, especially like large enterprises where it's like salary bands are made from corporate and only
Mhm.
the board of directors can approve overrides. It's for bigger companies. I've seen that as well. So no, all good advice. Any other final questions here? All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up today, and I want a special thank you for our three speakers. Gina, I think, had to drop off, but Linda and Kate, thank you so much for being part of our event today. And we're going to make a YouTube video to send out to everybody, as well as some emails to introduce all our speakers along with the offers that they have on hand. So everyone buy Kate's book and wait for Gina's next year. Some pretty exciting stuff. And make an audiobook. Like that's what we want as an audiobook. Because I drive and I
Yeah.
I have Audible going, and if it's an audiobook, like I'm all into that now. It's my new thing.
Yeah, that is one thing that's on my list of things that I need to get done. In at the first quarter of next year is my goal to get both of these books on audio.
Nice. Sounds good. We'll look forward to that. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
You
Bye.